Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. Sometimes you wonder, is there a clearer path? A way to grasp these really deep spiritual truths, find some real fulfillment without, having to completely check out of our busy lives.
Right. Can we transform our experience within this world?
Exactly. And today, that's precisely what we're looking into. We're going deep into some fascinating parts of an ancient text, the Harinama Cintamani by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Our goal is to really pull out the key ideas about, the nature of the divine, who we are as living beings, and this very specific, maybe even surprising path to spiritual realization.
Yeah, and it's important to know this isn't just abstract philosophy. The text actually describes conversations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, between Lord Caitanya, who is understood to be Lord Krishna himself, appearing in Navadvipa, and a great saint, Srila Haridas Thakur.
Wow.
Lord Caitanya, even though he was based in Puri, his mission was really about delivering humanity from, this cycle of suffering. He came to give the true spiritual practice for this age, freely offering what's called pure love of Godhead.
And what's amazing, you mentioned Haridas Thakur. His humility is just striking. He apparently saw himself as unfortunate and illiterate.
Incredible humility, yes.
Yet the Lord chose him for this incredibly important discussion. It kind of sets the stage perfectly for talking about the most accessible way to liberation, right? Something for everyone.
Absolutely. So to start, the text defines Lord Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, the master of everything, completely independent, self-willed, self-fulfilled.
Okay, so the ultimate source.
The ultimate source. He's beyond anyone's jurisdiction, really.
So if he's this ultimate independent being, how does he interact? How does everything else come about? Is it through these energies you hear about?
Precisely. That's the concept of his vibhava, his energies. His desires, which are unrestricted, are just effortlessly satisfied by his own internal potency. It's inherent to him.
Like the sun naturally giving light.
Good analogy. And the scriptures break this down into three main energies. First, there's the spiritual energy, the siddhabhava. This is a direct transformation of his personal internal power. It includes his eternal home, Vaikuntha Loka, his countless names Govinda, Hari, this transcendental forms.
Like the flute-playing form.
Exactly, that beautiful two-handed form. Also, his divine qualities, which are just sublime for his devotees, and his amazing pastimes like the rasa dance or the chanting he led in Navadvipa.
Oh.
And all this spiritual stuff is pure, full of bliss, totally beyond material limits like place or time. It's a whole different reality.
So it's all fundamentally part of Krishna himself, the spiritual energy.
Yes, it's his internal potency manifesting. Within that, there are even sub-potencies. Sandini for existence, maintaining everything. Samvit for knowledge, how he knows himself and everyone. And Hladini, the bliss potency, creating ecstatic relationships.
Got it. So that's the spiritual realm, but then there's our world, the material one. How does that fit?
Right, that's the second energy, the material energy, often called Maya or acid vibhava. It's described almost like a shadow of the spiritual energy.
Shat.
Yeah, separated by a kind of spiritual boundary, the Viraja River. This material world, Devidhamma, has 14 planetary systems. It's made of the gross elements we know, earth, water, fire, air, ether.
The physical stuff.
Right. And also 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are more like the building blocks of our psychological experience or consciousness in this world.
Okay, so spiritual energy, material energy.
Right.
What about us, the living beings? Where do we come in?
Good question. That's the third category. The marginal energy jiva vibhava. This refers to us, the individual spirit souls, the jivas.
Marginal. Why marginal?
Because we're the separate parts and parcels. Originally, we're spiritual, pure goodness, Sutta Sattva. But we possess a tiny, tiny degree of independence. We're situated, you could say, on the margin between the spiritual and material energies.
So what does that mean for us then? How do we end up in, the situation we often find ourselves in, this predicament?
Well, that tiny spark of independence. If we misuse it, if we start desiring self-importance, selfish pleasure, if we essentially turn away from our relationship with Krishna, we fall into the influence of Maya, that material energy. Our nature becomes mixed, Mr. Sattva, and this leads to transmigration.
The cycle of birth and death.
Exactly. Wandering through potentially 8.4 million species of life, experiencing suffering in our physical bodies and also our subtle bodies, mind, intelligence, ego, which are shaped by those material desires. We get caught in this cycle.
That sounds, yeah, pretty heavy. So naturally, people try to find ways out, or at least ways to improve their situation within this material world, right?
Yeah.
What are the common paths?
Yes, the Vedic texts discuss several. Two prominent ones are often mentioned. First, there's karma unmukhi. This is basically focusing on fruitive activities.
Like good deeds, rituals.
Yeah, auspicious actions, things recommended in the Vedas, often done with duty or hoping for good results, maybe even aiming for heavenly planets after death.
Okay, sounds reasonable.
It can grant temporary benefits, material comforts, even elevation. But the results are always temporary. They don't satisfy the soul's deeper longing because they lack that direct spiritual connection, that pure intention focused on the divine.
So like you said before, the fancy car eventually runs out of gas. That doesn't solve the fundamental issue.
Exactly. Then there's Jnana-ukhi, the path of knowledge or empirical philosophy.
The thinkers, the philosophers?
Right. These individuals, the Jnanis, are generally considered more advanced than the karmas. They understand material life involves suffering, and they aim for liberation.
Liberation from the cycle.
Yes. Their goal is often absorption into the impersonal Brahman. This is described as Krishna's brilliant spiritual light, his effulgence. Think of it as his consciousness, but sort of without his personal will and specific qualities.
Impersonal light. Where is that located?
It's said to be on the bank of that Viraja river, separating the material and spiritual worlds. But some philosophies following this path, like Mayavada, tend to see the Lord himself as ultimately impersonal. They sort of try to strip away his personal will and potency.
Ah.
And because of that focus on the impersonal, it doesn't really lead to direct, loving service to the Lord in his personal form.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting, as you mentioned. Why aren't these paths, which seem noble, doing good deeds, seeking knowledge, why aren't they the ultimate solution, especially now in our current age?
It's a critical point. While karma and jnana can offer temporary relief or kind of partial liberation, maybe freedom from gross suffering, they can't give Krishna prema.
Pure love of Godhead.
Yes, which is what the soul actually inherently craves. And specifically in Kali Yuga, this current age, we face challenges. Short lifespans, more disease. Our minds and bodies aren't as strong as in previous eras. So the really difficult practices of the past, intense meditation for years, huge elaborate fire sacrifices, very strict formal deity worship, they just aren't potent enough for the general population now. Lord Krishna himself indicated that we shouldn't pin our hopes solely on those methods for this age.
So what is the recommended path for Kali Yuga?
This leads us to the Yuga Dharma, the specific prescribed practice for this age. The congregational chanting of the holy name, Nama Sankirtana.
Chanting the names.
Yes. This is presented as the only effective method, the sadhana, and also the only goal, the sadhya, in this age. Its simplicity and power are unique.
And this brings us right back to that core interaction in the Harinama Cintamani, doesn't it, between Lord Caitanya and Haridas Thakur. Tell us more about that meeting under the tree in Puri.
It's a beautiful, pivotal moment. Lord Caitanya, who appeared specifically to deliver the fallen souls, he met Haridas Thakur near the ocean. After bathing, he came to Haridasa and asked him, essentially, what's the easiest way to deliver all these conditioned souls from sin?
Even though Haridasa felt unqualified.
Exactly. Despite his incredible humility, feeling unfortunate and illiterate, his reaction was pure spiritual ecstasy. The text says his whole body went into rapture. He offered prayers, voice choked, shivering, tears flowing. He basically said, "My Lord, your actions are unfathomable. I'm just unfortunate and illiterate. Your feet are my only shelter. You are Krishna, appearing now to save everyone. Please shelter me. Your holy name is unlimited, full of endless excellences. Your beauty pulls me into a shoreless ocean of joy. You've mercifully brought your name, form, qualities, pastimes into this world so even a wretch like me can experience them. Usually we can't perceive these transcendental things with our limited senses, but you're revealing yourself now for everyone's benefit. This is your internal potency acting directly."
That's incredibly moving. So the core teaching emerging here is that the holy name isn't just a symbol or a sound representing Krishna.
Absolutely not. That's the fundamental point. The holy name of Lord Krishna is non-different from Krishna himself. Nami and Nama are one. Yes, it's omnipresent, all-powerful, eternally free from any material taint, Nitya Mukta, pure spiritual goodness, Sudasattva, beyond the material modes, untouched by birth or death. And crucially, it contains everything within it: Krishna's name, his form, his qualities, his pastimes. It's the complete incarnation of the highest spiritual sweetness, rasa.
So the name coming to this world is Krishna making himself accessible.
Precisely. It's the direct display of his internal spiritual potency, making him perceivable even to us with our limited mundane senses. It's Krishna himself in a form we can actually connect with through sound.
Okay, so if the name is that powerful, literally Krishna himself, this just saying it automatically fix everything, what about all our flaws, our baggage? What the text calls anarthas, those unwanted things, we all have those, right?
That's a really important question, and it leads to a key distinction. There's the concept of nama abhas, which translates to something like shadowy or impure chanting.
Impure chanting.
Yes. Even when the name is chanted imperfectly, maybe just once, maybe with a distracted mind, maybe without full understanding, it still brings immense benefits. It's incredibly powerful.
Even imperfectly.
Even imperfectly.
Yeah.
It can liberate a person immediately, regardless of their background, absorb mountains of sins, free them from the negative influences of Kali Yuga. It's shown to be more powerful than all other pious acts combined, vows, yoga, sacrifices, you name it.
Wow. But there's a but, isn't there?
There is. While nama abhas, this impure chanting, grants liberation, mukti, even merging into that impersonal Brahman light we talked about, it cannot, by itself, directly award Krishna prema, pure love of Godhead.
And why not?
Because it's still influenced by those anarthas, those unwanted desires and habits clouding the heart.
Right, anarthas. Can you break those down a bit? What kind of things are we talking about?
Sure. They fall into a few categories. First, there's a satrishna, the thirst for illusory things.
Like what? Material stuff?
Yeah, craving material gains, position, power in this world, or even pleasures in heavenly planets. It also includes desiring mystic yogic powers, or even, ironically, desiring that impersonal liberation we discussed because it's still focused on my liberation, not selfless love.
Okay, so desires for things that aren't purely spiritual.
Exactly. Second is Shuddhya Dharbalya, weakness of the heart.
Weakness of heart.
Things like deep-seated material attachments, duplicity or deceitfulness, envy, especially envy of others who are advancing spiritually or materially, and the constant hankering for name, fame, and personal glory. It's about where our loyalty really lies.
Makes sense. And the third?
The third, and these are really critical, are aparadas, offenses, direct disrespect or mistakes made in relation to the chanting process, the Lord, or his devotees. We absolutely need to get into those.
Okay.
So the text explains it like this. There's a mist of ignorance, ajnana, and these clouds of anarthas that basically obscure our spiritual vision.
Yep.
They prevent us from seeing the holy name for what it truly is, like a brilliant sun.
So the sun is there, but we can't see it clearly through the fog.
Perfect analogy. As long as those impurities, that fog, remains, the chanting stays on the level of nama abhas, the reflection or shadow. Still powerful, but not the full direct experience.
So what's the alternative? How do we get past the fog?
That's Suddhanama, pure chanting. This is chanting done without any of those offenses and free from those underlying material desires, anarthas. This is the stage where the holy name directly reveals himself and bestows Krishna prema.
And how does one get from nama abhas to Suddhanama? Is it automatic?
It's a progression. While nama abhas doesn't directly give prema, its immense power lies in clearing away sins and granting liberation from material suffering. This purification gradually creates the right condition, the spiritual merit, Sukriti, for a person to eventually meet and get guidance from a pure saintly devotee, a true vaisnava.
Ah, so association becomes key.
Critically important. Meeting such a soul is described as a very rare gift. Through proper association, sadhusanga, and serving that devotee, learning from them, the anarthas, that fog, are gradually dispelled. Then nama abhas naturally transforms into Suddhanama. Faith becomes firm, and love of Godhead awakens.
Okay, so that path involves purification and guidance. Now, you mentioned offenses, aparadas being crucial. Haridas Thakur was fearful of them.
Gravely fearful. He understood these are serious impediments. They block the full effect of the name, prevent that sweetness from manifesting, and can actually keep one entangled in the cycle of birth and death, despite chanting.
Okay, this sounds really important. What are these 10 offenses we need to be so careful about?
All right, Haridas Thakur listed them for Lord Caitanya. Here they are. 1. Blaspheming the devotees, Satyaninda. This is number 1 for a reason. Criticizing, finding fault with, or intending harm to a genuine saintly person, especially one dedicated to spreading the glories of the holy name. This is considered extremely detrimental. It disrupts everything. The scriptures describe the qualities of a true devotee: merciful, tolerant, truthful, pure, humble. Disrespecting them is a major offense.
So attacking the messenger.
Exactly.
Huh.
Considering demigods independent or equal to the Supreme Lord, Sivasistra Visnur, Yayiha Gunanamadi Sakalam. Thinking that deities like Brahma or Shiva are on the same level as Lord Vishnu Krishna or are independent supreme beings, this diminishes Krishna's unique position as the one absolute truth.
Got it. They have roles, but aren't the ultimate source.
Precisely. 3. Disobeying the spiritual master, Godruma-svananda-sukhada-kunja. The bona fide guru is the one who reveals the truth about the holy name and guides the disciple. Disregarding or disrespecting their instructions is a serious offense.
Undermining the guidance system.
Yes. 4. Criticizing Vedic scriptures, Nindana, showing disrespect to the revealed scriptures, like the Vedas or Puranas, that authoritatively describe the glories of the Lord in his holy name.
Doubting the source material.
5. Thinking the glories of the holy name are imaginary or exaggerated, Arthaveda. This is disbelief. Thinking, oh, these descriptions of the name's power must be an exaggeration, just poetry. Not accepting its transcendental potency.
Lack of faith in the process itself.
Exactly. 6. Committing sins on the strength of chanting. Namno balad yasyai papabudir. This is a tricky one. Using the fact that chanting purifies sins as a license to deliberately continue sinning, thinking, I could just chant later and cancel it out. That's a misuse, a loophole mentality.
Right, genuine repentance.
Not at all. 7. Equating the holy name with mundane piety, karmakanda, thinking that chanting is just another good deed on the same level as charity, austerity, or Vedic rituals aimed at material results. It fails to recognize the name's unique transcendental position.
Seeing it as material, not spiritual.
Correct. 8. Instructing the holy name to the faithless, asradhane vimukhe, by astronavi. Giving the sacred mantra initiation or detailed confidential instructions about the name to someone who has no real faith is disrespectful or actively hostile.
It can lead to further offenses.
Casting pearls before swine, sort of?
That kind of idea, yes. Protecting the sanctity. 9. Being inattentive while chanting, pramada. This is probably the most common one for beginners. Chanting mechanically, without attention, mind wandering everywhere due to laziness or indifference. Not really hearing the name.
The mind chatter problem.
Very much so. 10. Maintaining material attachments despite knowing the glories. Aham mamadi paramo. This is clinging to egoistic concepts I and mine. Bodily attachments, material possessions, even after understanding the supreme value and goal of chanting purely. It's an attachment that holds one back from full surrender.
Knowing better but still clinging to the old ways.
Precisely. These 10 are the main pitfalls to avoid, for the chanting to become truly effective, to become Sudhanama. That's a really clear and sobering list. It highlights how much attitude and understanding matter, not just the physical act of chanting. And it circles back to the importance of guidance, right? Association.
Absolutely vital. The text stresses again and again that association with a genuine spiritual master and pure devotees, sadhu sangha, is the most powerful way to overcome material entanglement. You can't really earn that kind of association, that sukriti or pious credit, just by doing rituals or austerities alone. It's a gift.
So it really matters who you surround yourself with, who you learn from.
Immensely.
Yeah.
Contact with ignorance or avidya leads you astray. Even as we mentioned, impersonal philosophers, nanis. They might gain some insight, realize that impersonal Brahman, but they often miss Krishna's personal nature, his will, his potencies. They remain sort of on the edge.
And that misunderstanding can be serious.
It can be. This relates back to the offenses. Imagining Krishna's name, form, qualities, or pastimes are somehow material or illusory or separate from him. This is sometimes called Mayavadi philosophy, or tattva vyavadhana, a philosophical disruption. It's considered a grave offense because it fundamentally misrepresents the nature of the absolute truth, as described in the Vedas. Yeah. It makes attaining pure love impossible if you hold on to that idea.
So how does one get the right understanding?
Through the genuine spiritual master. The guru imparts what's called sambandha-jnana.
Sambandha-jnana.
Knowledge of the eternal relationship, the relationship between God, Krishna, the individual soul, Shiva, and the material energy, Maya. Understanding these connections is what helps dissolve that mist of ignorance and clear away the anarthas.
And this understanding isn't tied to, birth or social status.
Not at all. True spiritual qualification isn't about external labels. It's about the quality of one's surrender to Krishna. The Lord himself is inherently compassionate. Even when souls are caught up in Maya, he subtly guides them, maybe through indirect paths like following societal duties, varnasrama, or other pious acts, to gradually purify them and bring them closer. Ultimately, it's his grace, his intervention, that purifies the soul.
Okay, so assuming we're trying to avoid these offenses, seeking good association, cultivating this understanding, What does the positive path towards that goal, Krishna Prema, look like?
The text points to Bhakti-Unmukhi Sukriti pious activities that are inclined towards devotion as the most valuable kind. Why? Because these activities eventually lead you to sincerely inquire about spiritual life and crucially bring you into contact with a pure devotee.
That association again.
It's central. And remember, Lord Krishna is described as an ocean of magnanimity, the supreme controller, always working for the welfare of the jivas, his parts and parcels.
He wants us to come back.
Absolutely. He provides opportunities, even indirect ones, like following dharma, doing sacrifices, yoga, observing vows. These might seem like preliminary steps, but they purify the heart, lessen material desires, and importantly, sow the seed of real faith, sraddha.
And the ultimate goal of all this, achieved through chanting,
is Krishna Prema, pure love of Godhead. And here's the beauty and the magic of the holy name. It is both the path, sadhana, and the destination, sadhya.
The means and the end are the same.
Exactly, because the name is Krishna. So by engaging in the means chanting the name, you are directly connecting with the goal, Krishna himself. This non-difference makes it uniquely accessible and powerful for us jivas.
So what is the spiritual identity of the name then? You mentioned it's like a wish-fulfilling jewel.
Yes, Cintamani. It can grant conventional rewards, religion, wealth, sense pleasure, even liberation to those who approach it with those desires. But for the surrendered devotee, it grants the ultimate gift. Pure love for Krishna is the absolute truth, omnipotent, full of bliss, eternal, completely free from any material flaw.
And you said earlier it contains everything, his form, qualities, pastime.
Inherently interconnected. When you purely chant the name, his beautiful form spontaneously appears in the mind. His divine qualities become perceivable. His enchanting pastimes are remembered. It's all there within the name.
So chanting isn't just sound, it's invoking the whole reality of Krishna.
The complete reality.
Okay.
And there's a parallel transformation within the chanter. As the jiva gets purified from material contamination, their own original spiritual identity, their true name, form, qualities, activities, which gets distorted and contradictory in the material world due to false ego. That spiritual identity starts to shine through, becomes harmonious and realized.
Wow. And what's the experience like when chanting becomes pure, Sudhanama?
It's described ecstatically as the holy name literally dances on the devotee's tongue, and simultaneously those anarthas, the unwanted stuff, are cleansed from the heart. Krishna Prema, pure love, enters and dances within the heart.
Love enters as impurities leave.
At that very moment, Maya, the illusory energy, just flees. She can't remain where pure devotion is manifest. And the devotee's perception changes. The entire world starts to appear spiritually vibrant, connected to Krishna.
That's an incredible picture. What a journey we've covered today delving into this. From the nature of the divine and his energies to our own predicament as souls, and then this profound, accessible solution for our age, chanting the holy name. And the absolute importance of doing it correctly, avoiding those offenses, seeking guidance and association. It all leads towards that ultimate goal of pure, selfless love.
It really does map out a complete path, grounded in both deep philosophy and practical application.
So maybe a final thought to leave our listeners with,
Yeah.
connecting this to the bigger picture.
Well, you think about today's world, right? Spiritual understanding can seem so complex, fragmented, maybe even obscured. How might embracing this path, the simple yet incredibly profound power of the holy name, chanted with genuine faith, with the right understanding and guidance, how might that actually revolutionize our entire experience of reality itself?
That's definitely something powerful to reflect on. How could that simple sound, approached correctly, change everything?
It's the question the text implicitly asks us to consider.
Indeed. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you plenty to think about. Maybe it inspires you to explore the holy name further on your own journey. Thank you so much for joining us today.